I mean, I've been talking about the top that Bitcoin has been forming pretty much over the last 4 years. And I think it is a major top.
GM, good morning and welcome to the Milk Road Show, the daily crypto show where long-term vision meets short-term volatility, and we try to sound calm about it. I'm your host, LGD Set, joined by my co-host, Kyle Reedhead. Today is Friday, October 31st, 2025, although we are recording this the day before. Today we're joined by Peter Schiff, a man who called the economic collapse of 2008. He is a massive gold maxi, but a Bitcoin skeptic, so the conversation will be very interesting. We are on the eve of who knows what kind of financial turmoil. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or the next couple of months, and Peter will definitely have some very strong opinions on it. He's perpetually bearish on crypto and Bitcoin. He thinks gold is the place to go, and we're going to hear about it. And we also just want to know what he thinks is going to go well in the economy going forward, what he thinks should be done, what he thinks should be done differently. And before we start, just want to send you guys, if you guys are doing any kind of transactions today, use Milk Road Swap. Listen, it's the tool that we've built. You can seamlessly trade on Ethereum-based Arbitrum, whatever you want, and you've got some really fantastic fees there. So if you're making any trades into stables or out of stables, whatever you're doing, check that out. Today's episode is brought to you by Gemini Credit Card. Turn your everyday spending into Bitcoin stack sats without even thinking about it. Bridge, power your business with instant stablecoin payments, no friction, no banks, just global finance made simple in figure markets. Earn solid returns on your cash because sitting idle isn't a strategy. Here he is. Let's get him in here. Peter, there he is. Peter, what's going on, man? Good to see you. Hey, thank you for coming on the Milk Road Show.
You know, I forgot that you guys were a crypto podcast. So, you ought to change the name from milk to spilt milk.
And
then you can't cry over that, right? So but
this is going to be fun.
Better than rotten milk.
I haven't always been bearish on crypto on a daily basis. I mean, I've been bearish about it, conceptually since I, first learned about it because I thought it was just, worthless. But there have been periods of time along the way where just from a technical perspective, I've thought the market would go up before it went down. This is just not one of those times. I mean, I've been talking about the top that Bitcoin has been forming pretty much over the last 4 years. And I think it is a major top. It's taking a while to play out. But, Bitcoin really peaked out in November of 2021, priced in gold. And that's how I like to look at it, especially since Bitcoin, is being marketed as a digital version of gold, even though I take a lot of issue with that comparison. But that's how it's marketed. That's the meme associated with Bitcoin. And so if you price Bitcoin in gold, it's actually in a bear market. It's more than 20% below where it was 4 years ago. And even though nominally Bitcoin made a new high in August, and in fact took out the high priced in gold by about 1 or 2%, as soon as it did that, it completely collapsed. So there's a lot of resistance in Bitcoin. There's been a lot of distribution. A lot of the big insiders, I think, have been unloading their tokens. A lot of them, I think, gave a lot of money to the politicians, Donald Trump, in order to get a lot of hype that would enable them to sell even more of their tokens. In fact, the president and his family cashed in on hundreds of millions of dollars on crypto hype right after he got elected. But also, if you look at the crypto stocks, they're getting obliterated. Some of the stocks that went public earlier this year are just down 50% or more from where they were just a couple of months ago. The poster boy of crypto, MicroStrategy or Strategy, although I joke they should change the name to Micro. That would have been a better word to keep to describe what's going to happen to the stock price. But Strategy is now down more than 50% from where it was in November. So it seems to me that there's a lot of warning signs that the bloom is coming off the crypto tulip, and people are ignoring that.
Okay, well, we're going to come back to a lot of these numbers in just a second. You came in hot. We didn't even ask a question yet, but we've got beef, obviously. But we have even more beef than I think people understand. LG and I are actually Canadians from Toronto. And what did Peter Schiff? So you think the Bitcoin thing is bad? What did Schiff tweet? Was it today? Yesterday?
You want to lead with this?
Yeah. Let's lead with this. We got to hash
Here it
this
is.
one out
Okay,
first.
I got to pull it up. I'll pull it up. Here it is. Here we go. It's time. And this wasn't even yet. This was on Tuesday. This is on Tuesday's game. So game 4. It's time for Trump to hit the Blue Jays with an emergency 100% reciprocal tariff. I mean, most of the players are Americans anyways on the Jays.
Well, I know that, but I posted that right after that 2-1 homer, and that's when right. The Blue Jays took the lead for good after that. And of course they had a decisive win last night, so now they're coming home. But yeah, I was just joking with Trump because he doesn't really understand tariffs. He threatened to put tariffs on foreign films. So I figured, why not foreign sports teams to protect the local teams? But, I spoke about it again on my podcast last night. But I also pointed out that the Dodgers have like 3 Japanese pitchers on their roster. So I thought that maybe the Blue Jays were a more American team than the Dodgers. Yeah. But I said that maybe we should have a tariff on foreign players. So if a ball club like the Dodgers wants to bring somebody in from Japan to take away the job of an American pitcher, right, they got to have to pay a tariff, right? We got to protect our boys. Why should we have to compete with the Japanese? I
mean, they're already paying pretty big premiums to bring those guys over anyways. I'm sure you could take a little cut of that. I mean, okay, hold on. Okay, let's just wrap up the baseball for one quick second, that we can actually talk about finance. Peter, what do you think is going to happen? Game 6, and or 7
in Toronto.
Who's winning in Toronto? What's your outlook for the rest?
I mean,
of the
way Toronto's been playing, if they were able to win 2 in a row, in LA, I mean, you figure they're going to win back in Toronto. So I think with the Blue Jays is that they won one time in the past. Was that it?
Twice, back to back.
Twice,
yeah,
back to back. That's right, right. But when was that? In the 90s?
92, 93, 92.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess, I don't think Trump's going to be too happy though about that. If all
right.
So I think there probably will be some tariffs.
I'll tell you right now that there's actually I think there's a good amount of players on the Jays that would actually love to go to the White House. And I actually don't know how that works. I don't know how that works anymore, Kyle, because in the NHL, our Canadian team also hasn't won in 30 years. So I don't know if they go to the White House or if they go.
Well, the Raptors won like 6
Did they go to the White House or did they go see Trudeau?
I think they went to the White House. I don't know.
Did they go see Trudeau?
Let's go Blue Jays. Big time. We got 2 games. We just need 1 win.
I used to be a bigger Dodger fan because I lived in LA for quite some time. A long time ago.
And what happened? You dropped off?
Well, I mean, I haven't lived there in a long time, and I kind of,
so just not as interested. Yeah.
Did you know you can earn Bitcoin without ever buying it? That's where the Gemini Credit Card comes in. Here's how it works. Earn up to 4% back in Bitcoin on gas, transit, and rideshare, 3% on dining, 2% on groceries, and 1% on everything else. Use it just like any other credit card. And you're building a crypto portfolio at the same time. The best part, the Gemini Credit Card has no annual fee and works anywhere MasterCard is accepted. When you're approved and spend $3,000 in the first 90 days, you'll get a $200 Bitcoin bonus. Spend as usual, earn Bitcoin instead at milkroad.com/Gemini. Stablecoins are the biggest use case in crypto right now, but let's be real. Using them on chain is still way too complex. That's exactly the problem Bridge is solving. Recently acquired by Stripe, yep, that's Stripe, Bridge helps businesses send, store, accept, and launch stablecoins instantly. Explore the future of global financial infrastructure at milkroad.com/bridge.
Yesterday, Jerome Powell saying that a later rate cut this year, not guaranteed, or I'm not sure his exact words for. I believe that you're against the rate cuts so far, and you think that quantitative tightening should continue. Give us your perspective there.
Yeah, well, the Fed never should have stopped hiking. They stopped prematurely. I think what caused the Fed to stop hiking was the bankruptcies of Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank. There was a third one, forget the name. But I think the Fed was afraid that if it kept hiking, more banks would fail. And so I think that's the real reason that they stopped. And now they're cutting. But the Fed never really got monetary policy restrictive. And the Fed still claims that policy is moderate restrictive. Now it's not. It's still too loose. the way you know that is to look at credit growth, right? Because inflation is the expansion of money and credit. And the entire time the Fed was raising rates, credit continued to expand. Consumers kept borrowing more money. Household debt hit new record highs. Credit card debt hit new record highs. Government debt exploded. That tells you that interest rates were too low. They weren't high enough to slow down the credit growth. That's what the Fed needed to do, is rein in that consumption that was fueled by credit. Instead, people continue to borrow and spend. The government continued to borrow and spend because monetary policy never got tight. And now he's cutting even more. And, if you look at where the Fed funds rate is now, it's just below 4%. The CPI is running at 3%. So you're talking about 1% rates, assuming you believe the 3% CPI, which I don't. I think that you have to at least double the official inflation rate to get close to the real rate. So if the government is telling us inflation is 3, it's 6. If inflation is 6 and the Fed funds is 4, you got negative rates. By what definition is the Fed being restrictive when people are being paid to borrow money? Policy rates need to be much, much higher. In Volcker in 1980, short-term rates got to 20%. That was more than double the inflation rate at the time. And we measured it a lot more honestly back then than we do now. So, we're nowhere near restrictive. And so that's why we've had this expansion. Money supply growth continues to expand. And it's going to expand even faster now without quantitative tightening. So, the Fed is throwing gasoline on the inflation fire that it lit. So this is clearly a policy mistake. I mean, gold knows it's a mistake. That's why gold got above 4,000. It's because the Fed is making these mistakes. That's why the world is getting rid of dollars, right? Because they can see what the Fed is going to do. And so they want out. They don't want to hold our currency. They don't want to hold our bonds. They want to hold something that we can't print, and that's gold. And also something that we can't sanction. If a foreign central bank or a foreign government owns gold and it has it in a vault within its own borders, we can't touch it. We can't debase it. We can't sanction it. We can't do anything. And so that's where the world is headed.
Is the reason that you want rates higher, you think that rates should be higher, is because you're concerned that inflation is going to go much higher than it is today?
Well, it is going to go much higher, but look, rates need to be higher because they're too low. I mean,
why? We're the why? People just say that, but why? What is the issue? What are you afraid of if rates are low?
Well,
or concerned of
interest rates are the price of borrowing money, and prices are supposed to be determined by supply and demand, not by a government politburo, not by some guys and gals in a back room who meet and decide what the rate should be, right? The market should discover it based on supply and demand. So if you look at America, when it comes to the price of borrowed money, what is the supply? The supply is savings, right? How much have we saved, right? How much money are Americans socking away in the bank, right? That's the supply of savings. Where's the demand coming from? That's businesses, governments, and consumers who want to borrow money to build a plant, a real loan, buy property, finance a car, buy stuff on a credit card, fund government budget deficits. Well, in America, we have more borrowing than ever before and less savings. So we have massive demand for credit and minimal supply of credit. So in that environment where you have very low supply and enormous demand, where should price be? Right? The price should be high, right? But instead, interest rates are low. 4% is a low rate. So the market would have a much higher rate of interest. And what would a higher rate of interest do? It would cause more people to save and fewer people to borrow. And that would help with the imbalances. That would help bring up our savings rate, which is what we need. It would curtail borrowing and consumption that's financed by debt. And if we had more savings, we could have more capital investment so that we can build the factories necessary to make the products that we now import from the rest of the world. So higher interest rates is part of the cure for what ails us. All of the problems that Donald Trump is worried about and says he's going to solve with tariffs have all been caused by artificially low interest rates. Yet what Trump wants to do is take the low rates that we have and make them even lower. So he wants to basically give us more of the toxic monetary heroin that is the reason the country is so sick and is the reason that he got elected twice, because the voters want somebody to fix the problem. Yet all Trump wants to do is make it worse by pursuing the same policies that caused the problem, that the voters don't understand the cause. They are just living with the results and the symptoms of it. So we need higher interest rates, but we're not going to get higher interest rates, because higher interest rates, even though they are in the long-term best interest of the country, in the short run, it will create a lot of problems for a lot of people and a lot of losses, because higher interest rates will lead to bankruptcies, defaults, layoffs, recession. All this stuff has to happen. And if allowed to happen, it's all ultimately a positive for the long-term health of the economy. But no politician wants to live through that, to get to the promised land. They don't want to have to deal with it. And so we never really have a cleansing recession to basically eliminate all these mistakes and malinvestments and lay a foundation for solid economic growth. We just keep on juicing the economy with more of this monetary heroin and kicking the can down the road. And so, we've been doing that for a long time. And eventually, we can't do it anymore. And I think what we're seeing now in the gold market is a sign that, we've run out of road here, and the world is not going to subsidize this profligacy anymore. And so we're not going to be able to keep borrowing money and printing money without destroying the currency, without destroying the bond market. And I think that's where we're headed.
I think so. Actually, I fully agree with everything you said. I think they're not going to go through that tough time because it's not just a tough time. It is literally like, think about the aging population in the US. It's a fairly old population, an unproductive population, a retired population. A lot of them, they're not getting through that, right? And so you literally can't do this, I don't think, because if you do that, they're not saving more. You can put rates to whatever you want, and it doesn't, like, everyone that's retired, they're not going to save more money than they save today. It's not going to change a thing for all them, but they're going to get decimated because their house, which is the only thing they own, and their retirement savings are going to get completely rocked. So, like, I think there's no way that that ever happens.
But
we're going to have
the retired people are the ones that are going to be hurt the most by massive inflation. So it's not like you're going to save the retirees by destroying the value of the money that they're hoping to retire on. So probably the best thing we could do for them is to raise rates and allow prices to fall and preserve the value of the money, because they may have pensions. They have other sources of income, annuities and things like that, that at least the value would be preserved. But I think it's going to get completely wiped out. I think we're going to have massive inflation, and that's going to cut short the retirement of most Americans. Right? I mean, the only hope would be an AI productivity miracle, and we'll see how quickly, AI can start increasing productivity to the point where it can offset this massive inflation. But I don't think it's going to happen soon enough to get us out of jail.
Lots we want to unpack here, and I'm glad you brought it back because we're going to get to that afterwards. Let's focus in on gold, because obviously that's your thing. That's what you've been focused on. Gold, and I got to give my hats off to you. Gold is up something like 25% in the last 2.5 months. It's up, I think, 55% year to date, 120% in the last 2 years. So since October 2023. It's been absolutely ripping. Your perspective, Peter, why is that? Why is it on an absolute tear? And who is buying gold right now?
Well, first of all, gold's not my only thing. It's just one of the things. I have an asset management company, and we have an allocation to gold. But I understand what gold is. Most people have no idea what gold is, especially the people in the crypto community. They're completely clueless as to what gold is. They think it's got no value. They confuse it with Bitcoin. But gold is real money. Most people don't use it as money today, but central banks do. And gold is the most viable alternative to the US dollar. So I think that back in the Biden administration, when Joe Biden put the sanctions on Russia for the Ukraine war, I think that was a wake-up call, a long overdue wake-up call to the rest of the world that you're playing with fire holding US dollars as your reserve, because you're putting yourself in a very vulnerable position where if you piss off the US, you're going to get sanctioned and you're going to have, the rug pulled out from under you on your reserves. So I think that was a wake-up call to start divesting of dollars. And, the world should have done this anyway, just based on the enormity of our debts. Now we have 38 trillion of debt. The debt is growing by 2 to 3 trillion a year. It's obviously unpayable. Soon it will be unserviceable. And so the world knows that if they hold our paper, they're going to get screwed. So they don't want it anymore. So they've been buying. And I think that when Trump won, that was also a wake-up call, because Donald Trump ran on a platform, and the Republicans ran that, hey, there was too much spending under the Democrats. They ran up the debt, the Inflation Reduction Act, these other acts. We had inflation because of too much government spending. We need to get Trump in office. We need to get Republicans so we can reverse that. We can cut back on the Biden era spending and make government smaller. And when Trump and the Republicans came to office, they did the opposite of that. They not only preserved all of the Biden spending that they criticized, they expanded on it. So the deficits that they inherited from Biden were made larger under Trump. And so that really tells the world, look, there's no way America is ever going to get its fiscal house in order. There is no appetite on either side of the aisle to reduce government spending, to lower the deficits. And so if we continue to finance these deficits, we're going to get wiped out through inflation or just the dollar debasement. And so that's how the real de-dollarization, dollar debasement trade picked up the pace. And you have more and more central banks now who could read the writing on the wall, and they're getting out. And, a lot of people in the U.S. are very complacent, about the U.S. dollar's status as the reserve currency, because they think the world is kind of stuck, that they've got no place to go because, the euro's no good, the yen's no good, the pound's no good, right? The RMB, so the dollar wins by default. We're the cleanest dirty shirt in the hamper, right? Well, my position has been, you don't have to go to the hamper. You could just go to gold. Gold's not in the hamper at all. Gold, smells great, right? It's pristine. It doesn't have any of the problems of any of these other currencies. And so the world doesn't have to go to a euro standard to go off the dollar standard. It just has to go back to the gold standard, which served the world extremely well before it went on the dollar standard. And initially, when the world agreed to accept the dollar as a reserve, it was because it was not only backed by gold, but redeemable on demand in gold. So, it wasn't until 1971 that we screwed everybody over and defaulted. But, 71 was when we went off the gold standard. Now the world is going off the dollar standard. It's a process. It's not going to happen in one day. Like when Nixon said, hey, no, you can't get any gold for your Federal Reserve notes. It's a process. I don't know how long it's going to take, but it's underway now. And that's why the price of gold is going up, because central banks are going to keep buying it. But also individual investors, institutional investors, after years and years of completely ignoring gold, watching it go from under 300 to over 4,000. I mean, the gold has outperformed the S&P 500 so far this century. And in fact, if you go back to the peak of the stock market during the tech.com bubble, in 1999, the Dow was worth 45 ounces of gold. Now it's worth about 11 or 12. So it's like a 70% decline in the Dow. So Wall Street is finally recognizing that, assets are losing value relative to gold. Cash is getting destroyed relative to gold, and that people need to own gold. And so investors are now just starting to incorporate some gold into their portfolios after having no gold in their portfolios at all for the prior, 20 years or so. So this is just going to dramatically increase the demand because, central bank demand is going to continue. Investor demand is just getting started and will grow over the years. And you don't have a lot of new gold coming out of the market. There hasn't been a major discovery, and I can't remember how long. Gold companies over the last 10, 20 years have not invested heavily in exploration and development. So you're just not going to have a lot of new supply coming out of the mines, but you're going to get a lot of demand from investors and central banks. So, the market can only clear at higher prices, and that's why they're going to keep going higher.
Peter, why are all the institutions buying Bitcoin? Why are they adding Bitcoin to their balance sheet?
Well, I think
they know this too.
Well, there's a handful of companies that are doing that. I don't know the exact number, but the majority of companies, right? Fortune 500 companies, they don't have any Bitcoin on their balance sheet. They don't have any gold either, right? They have cash. But there are a handful of companies that were putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet, just like companies in the 1990s were just sticking .com on the end of their name. Because when you announced that you were going to be a Bitcoin treasury company, Bitcoin speculators rushed into your stock and bought it. And so it was a gimmick to try to get value. I mean, look what happened to David Bailey's company, Nakamoto, because he jumped on that bandwagon. I was at the Bitcoin conference when they announced this stock. It was like $30 when it came out over the summer, in May, and it was all Bitcoin treasury company. The stock was $30. It's like 75 cents now, right? But a lot of companies were jumping on this bandwagon because initially, if you put Bitcoin on your balance sheet, let's say you spent $100 million buying Bitcoin, your stock might go up by 500 million, $1 billion. Investors were willing to pay a lot more to buy a company that owns Bitcoin than they were to buy the Bitcoin, right? So that's why companies were doing it. But, smarter people, Jim Chanos, I know, saw how ridiculous it was. So he started buying Bitcoin and shorting MicroStrategy. That's going to be a winning trade. It probably already is a big winning trade for him right now, but I think he's got a lot more to profit on that because Bitcoin is not worth more just because you wrap it up in a Bitcoin treasury company. And as far as I'm concerned, it's worth less. Whatever Bitcoin is worth, it's worth more if you self-custody it than sticking with some third party. I mean, that's the whole point of Bitcoin, is to have it in your own wallet, not to have some third party holding it for you, especially when they're levered up like MicroStrategy. It can go bankrupt and end up losing it or have to sell it into a void. Who knows where they're going to get margin called out and have to just dump all that Bitcoin onto the market. So that's the reason people were doing it. Those companies were just trying to jump on a bandwagon to make a quick buck. But I think all these companies are going to go out of business. I mean, there is no viable business in just buying Bitcoin. I mean, you're basically an ETF, right? So if you want to buy a Bitcoin ETF, buy a Bitcoin ETF. No point in buying MicroStrategy or any of these companies that are copycat Bitcoin treasury companies. I mean, that's the whole. There's no business model there. Like, what's your business? We buy Bitcoin and we hold it. What the hell is that? Who the hell needs a company to do that? You can do it yourself.
Okay, forget the treasury companies for a second. You know, it's funny, Peter, listening to you speak, we share a lot of the same ideals and thoughts around the market, right? In terms of like monetary policy is a mess. The political world is a mess. They're screwing everything up. A lot of people or a lot of countries, central banks want to leave the dollar. We want to get away from the dollar. I actually agree with all of these things. And that really kicked off in October, as you mentioned. But why, if gold is the best, why is Bitcoin up 400% since October 2023, but gold is only up 120% since October 2023? So we agree on the same reason that people are leaving the dollar. However, the market tells you that Bitcoin is actually the better asset, and there's more people going to that than there is gold.
Look, at one point, more people were buying Beanie Babies than gold. What the hell did that mean? Did that mean that Beanie Babies were better than gold? I mean, look, Bitcoin was a fad, a mania, a financial bubble. It's got nothing to do with gold. I mean, gold is kind of the way that it was hyped and sold, right? Bitcoin is the ultimate meme coin. What is the meme that drives Bitcoin? The meme is that it's digital gold. Now, of course, it's not digital gold at all. Now, if you want to have digital gold, you can tokenize gold. Right, you can have actual gold in a vault. The custodian can issue tokens that represent ownership of that gold, just like Tether. Well, they have a gold token, but the popular token is their dollar token, right? Where they hold dollars and they issue tokens that are backed by those dollars. So instead of using dollars, you use Tether, which are backed by dollars, and you could take them to Tether and get dollars, right? If you have whatever the minimum quantity is. But they're a receipt for dollars where Tether is your custodian. Well, Tether also has gold, and you can get a token that is backed by gold instead of backed by dollars. Now, for my money, if I was going to buy a token, that's the one I'd want, right? That's a real stable coin because gold gives you stability. Dollars give you inflation. So a
Bitcoin gives you outsized returns. Don't we want outsized returns? And Bitcoin gives you outsized returns. Isn't that what we're looking for as an investor?
It depends. Bitcoin can give you upsized returns if a lot of fools want to buy it at a higher price than what you paid. But Bitcoin also gives you the possibility of getting completely wiped out, right? If the supply of fools runs out. That is the problem. You're playing a big game of musical chairs. I don't know when the bottom is going to drop out of this thing. I mean, I don't know when people who have convinced themselves that nothing is something are going to realize that nothing is nothing. And right now, Bitcoin depends on more people deciding that nothing is something. But eventually, you run out of people who are going to make that leap of faith. But
how is that any different than gold?
An ever-expanding supply of fools in order to sustain it.
How is that any different than gold going up in price? It's the exact same thing.
It's 100% different because gold is an actual precious metal, right? Gold.
Why does that matter?
Because gold is the most useful metal in the world. Gold is used for so many things because gold has properties that other metals just don't have. Gold has been used for thousands of years because of those properties. And in fact, we have invented more ways to use gold. As we have more technology, we find more uses for gold. So gold's the most useful metal that we have. And so that's what gives it its value. Now, gold can also be used as money. That's one of a lot of different uses that it has. In theory, that's Bitcoin's only use, but it's not even useful for that. I mean, people will admit that, look, if you want to use a medium of exchange, Bitcoin's not your token. Use a different token. Well, then what the hell is Bitcoin for? They say, well, it's just to hold on to it like it's gold, except it's not gold. It's like saying that a digital representation of a hamburger is food. You can't say, well, this is digital food. Well, but it's not like an actual hamburger. I can't eat it. If I had a diet of digital food, I would starve to death, right? Digital gold, if I tokenize gold and you own the token, you own the gold. Very different than owning nothing. And I'm probably going to launch my own token. We should talk about, I just launched on my Schiff Gold website, right? If you go to Schiff Gold and go to the trade, eventually I have another URL, tgold.com. You can go to tgold.com too, but it doesn't link yet directly. The T was going to be for tokenized gold, but for now it's trade gold. But you go to my website, you can open up an account and buy gold that we will hold virtually for you, in a vault. But the purpose there is to give you gold that you could use as a medium of exchange, because I'm going to make it so people that have gold on my platform can exchange it with one another, and so they could use it in payments for goods and services. I'm going to link it to a debit card and a credit card, so you can go into an ATM machine, or you can go into a store and you can instantly convert your gold into fiat to spend it. Or hopefully, I want to build out a network of merchants who don't want fiat, who want gold. So you can go into any merchant who would accept it and you can spend your gold. But more particularly, if you are a businessman, if you own a small business and you want to get paid in gold, if you'd prefer to get real money for the real services that you provide or the goods that you're selling, it'll be possible to be paid in gold. I mean, it's possible now, but people just have to roll it out. I mean, gold today, with the technology we have, whether we're going to put it on a blockchain or just use the internet, gold is better as money today than it's ever been. And we don't need governments to go back to a gold standard, even though central banks are in effect doing it. But individuals can go back to a gold standard now on their own. We have the technology to do it. We don't need banks. We don't need a government printing press. We have a superior form of money. We could use gold. We don't even need, pennies anymore, or nickels or dimes. We don't, because we could break gold down into tiny fractions of a gram. And so I can buy a cup of coffee with gold. I don't have to pay with silver or copper because the gold is too valuable, because I could take a tiny bit of gold and transfer it to you digitally. So that really works. I mean, Bitcoin doesn't do that. Gold does.
It does. You can tokenize Bitcoin the same as you can tokenize gold. You can tokenize anything on top of Ethereum. On top of Ethereum.
You're not tokenizing anything when you make Bitcoin. You're just making a token out of thin air. You're just solving some ridiculous.
Here's the question I just want you to answer. I've always wondered this one. You say that gold is useful, which I understand there's some use cases for gold. It's not just that useful, but it has some use cases. Okay, but it's worth what, $35 trillion market cap or something like that? What's the value of gold in total? Somewhere around that number?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's gone up a lot recently, but
What percent of that 35 trillion is actually used as its intrinsic value, as you call it, as like whatever you use gold for, in braces or something, or jewelry?
Half the gold that is sold every year is used for jewelry, right? So that's a big source of the demand.
Sure.
But
it's only used for jewelry because people like gold and it has this store value. If it didn't have store value, no one would use it. Jewelry.
It's not only beautiful, but because of the properties of gold, you can make jewelry out of it. Right. There are a lot of other metals that won't work. You can't make jewelry out of it like you can with gold. And of course, gold doesn't rust, doesn't tarnish. So if you're wearing gold and you go for a swim, right, you take a shower, you're not going to harm your jewelry. But the other good thing about gold jewelry is if you use gold to make jewelry, the gold doesn't go anywhere. You can melt down your jewelry and get all of your gold back. It doesn't change. And in fact, a lot of the new supply of gold over the next few years for investors is going to come from people cashing in their jewelry because they need money. They're going to take their jewelry to pawn shops and they're going to cash it in for the value of the gold. But yes, of that 35 trillion of market value, right? How much any given year is used in consumer electronics, is used in aerospace, is used in medicine, is used in dentistry? Yes, a small amount is used for those purposes. But the gold that we have today doesn't just represent what we're using it for today. It represents the current value of what people will use it for in 100 years, in 200 years, because people are going to need that gold. We are digging it up now and holding it, storing that value to be used in the future by whoever needs it. right? So it doesn't matter that we're not using it today because it doesn't decay. It doesn't, it doesn't rot, right? It's not like we have to consume it now or it's going to go bad. So we're digging it out of the ground and we're just putting it in a place where it could be used. But in the short run, it can be used to back up currency, to provide stability in the monetary system because money has to be backed by something. And gold is the best thing to back up fiat currency with. So, the idea that, just because we're not doing using it for those purposes. And of course, the main reason that gold is not used even more is because it's too expensive. I mean, if the price of gold got cheaper, it would be used more, which is also a reason why the price can't fall very much, because as the price of gold comes down, the real world demand for gold goes up, because now all of a sudden, hey, I can't really afford to put gold in this at $4,000, but at $2,000, I'll buy it. It makes sense. At $4,000, I'm using something else, right? But there's always a price point where it becomes worth it to pay up for gold. And so you have, natural buyers that will step up into the market if the price gets too cheap. But there are no natural buyers for Bitcoin because there's nothing you can do with Bitcoin. There's no real use case for Bitcoin. All the buyers are speculators. Yeah, if people want to buy it because they think it's going to go up, then there'll be buyers. But if Bitcoin keeps falling to the point where people no longer believe it's going to go up, if they think it's going to keep falling, then who the hell's going to want to buy it? Nobody's going to want to buy it. It's not like if Bitcoin is at 10,000, it's a better deal than it's at 100,000 because you got nothing. Either way, it doesn't matter. I'm spending $10,000 on nothing. So what's the difference between spending $100,000 on nothing?
Why do people invest in real estate? Because it spits off cash flow. But I'm not here to manage rental properties. That's why I'm looking at Figure Markets. Their new democratized prime product backs your money with real cash flowing assets and returns up to 9% APY. It's the first real world asset borrow lend pool built for everyone, not just institutions. Ready to lend like a bank and get more than the 5% Aave is offering you? Download the Figure Markets app today and get 9% on your idle funds. Go to milkroad.com/Figure Markets.
Okay, let's look. We're not going to. I know we're never going to change your mind. Many people before me have tried. It's so funny though. Like all of your reasons for gold, well, most of them are like, or why you love gold, are just like you're like, yeah, well, Bitcoin is that too. And then for some reason, it just doesn't work for you. It works for your son. Isn't he still a big Bitcoiner?
Remember, that's why. Look, the environment in which Bitcoin thrived was the environment where gold went sideways, which was very frustrating for a lot of gold bugs because, so gold went from under $300 an ounce in 1999 to $1,900 an ounce in 2011, right? Bitcoin came on the scene in about 2010, right? After gold had already gone way up. Now, gold basically goes sideways, really, from 2011 to 2024, right? Up and down in a range, not going anywhere. The Fed has, printed all this money, right? There's all this inflation, and gold's not moving because people forget that gold already made a big move, right? And now it's kind of consolidating that move. And during that time, Bitcoin was marketed as a alternative to gold. Hey, gold's not going anywhere. Try Bitcoin. Look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin's going up. It's the new gold. It's gold 2.0. You guys are a bunch of dinosaurs with your, horse and buggy. Here's the new sports car, Bitcoin. And look at all these people getting rich. Look at all these kids that are buying Lambos. They bought Bitcoin and now they're millionaires and you've been sitting on your rocks and you haven't made any money. And so this was the hype that got a lot of people into it. And then, of course, as the price of Bitcoin goes up, it's a self-perpetuating situation, right? Higher prices sucks in more demand. And now you get even higher prices and now more tales of rags to riches. And so the people that got in really early who didn't sell, right now they clean up. They've got hundreds of millions, billions of dollars. They've got enough to buy off politicians, right? And now get the government involved. They sucker Wall Street in on it with all this money. Wall Street can't resist getting involved, right? They don't give a damn. They just want to make money. So they're gonna try to feed any duck that quacks. And you see all this stuff going on in crypto, And, even Jamie Dimon, who knows this is all BS, right? JP Morgan still gets involved because they want to make money. They want to cream, take the cream off the top of this. They want to book the bets. They want to be the casino that makes money off of all the Bitcoin action. They don't believe in it themselves. They know it's a con. At least a lot of them do. Some of them are probably, too caught up in it to recognize that that's what happens in every mania. People buy into the bullshit themselves. They don't realize that it's a bunch of bullshit. But this whole
Peter,
thing,
hold on. Let me
thing is going to come to an end. It's just going to be, the fact that it's gone on so much longer, and I've been criticizing it for so long. Right, this is where Peter Schiff, you've been saying not to buy Bitcoin since it was $100. See, what the hell do you know? It's like I know a lot more than the people who bought it. Now the thing is, had I made a better speculative wager, yes, I blew the opportunity to make a lot of money off of the greed and foolishness of a lot of other people. I had that opportunity and I missed out on it.
Is there ever a world or a price where you admit you were wrong? Does that exist for you?
I've already admitted I was wrong with the benefit of hindsight not to buy it. Sure, I should have bought it. But over the past 4 years or so, I've been wrong.
Gold is
I've been right not to buy it because everything pretty much that I own and that I've bought has done better than Bitcoin, right? So yes, I would have been better off owning Bitcoin from 2010 to 2021, right? Yeah, those 11 years I would have cleaned up had I only bought Bitcoin, right? But since then, I'm better off with what I own, right? And so what am I going to do? Yes, I missed out on that speculative opportunity, but that doesn't mean I'm going to buy it now, so after it's popped out. And, the whole world owns it. And you have, I've never seen in any asset so much conviction that you can't lose, right? If you talk to the typical Bitcoiner, there's no possibility that he's going to lose money in Bitcoin. All he has to do is hold it and it's guaranteed to go up. And not just a little, it's going to moon. People are going to get rich just by holding Bitcoin. That's all you have to do. Just make that one decision. Buy Bitcoin and you're on easy street. You don't have to save. You don't have to work hard. Just buy some Bitcoin and relax and hodl it, and you will be rich, right? That is the mantra. Just never sell it, no matter what happens. Never sell it because that's the biggest mistake you can make is actually sell. The people who are saying this are the ones who want to sell. The big guys that want to get out want to make sure the little guys don't get out because that would be competition, and they need more people to buy so they can get out, right? So it's a whole big marketing.
Peter, we got for the sake of time, we've got to start to wrap up, and so we want to ask you. Let's look into the future here. You talked about the last 11 years. You would have bought Bitcoin, or 11 years there. You would have bought Bitcoin. You would have done well. Now it was gold for the last 4 years. Take us to the next whatever time frame you look at. 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. How's gold do? How's Bitcoin do? How does whatever other markets you look at, you said that you allocate across things outside of gold. What's your outlook on like kind of the macro world and just like how do the assets play out from that?
Yeah, keep it concise, Peter. Like this is a portfolio building exercise. In 1 minute or less, what are you building a portfolio with right now for the next 10 years?
Our global foreign dividend payer portfolio at one point was up over 50% this year. I haven't checked it. Maybe it's up a little less than 50% now because it's pulled back. But I think this is indicative of a massive rotation that is just starting out of U.S. stocks into foreign stocks, which I think is going to move into emerging markets next year. So people who are in the stock market should underweight U.S. Substantially and move more money into international equities and emerging markets. I think they should also have an overweight to commodity type stocks, whether it's not just precious metals, industrial metals, agriculture, energy. I think a lot of these things are going to do very well in an inflationary de-dollarization environment. We're going to be in that for a long time. It's stagflation like the 1970s, except a lot worse than the 1970s. So if you go back and look at the investments that did well in the 1970s, they'll do even better now. So that's generally the portfolio. I've got a lot of mutual funds that people can buy. You can buy them no load at all the discount brokers. You go to my website at europac.com. You can see it above my shoulder. and you can learn about my websites. You can talk to the representatives. We have separately managed accounts. Gold and silver, I think, are going a lot higher. Everybody should own some physical gold and silver. You can go to shiftgold.com and buy some. If you have crypto, we partnered with BitPay. I probably was one of the first companies to partner with BitPay, so you can use your Bitcoin, buy gold and silver. So you should do that. And open up a trade account. Open up a virtual account on the new platform at shiftgold.com, and be a part of that, because I'm going to help to restore gold to money, not just as a store of value, but something that everyday Americans can use as a medium of exchange to get away from the US dollar. Just like a lot of people use FedEx and not the post office, a lot of people use Uber and not a taxi cab. The reason that you get a better deal at Uber or FedEx is because they're not government run, right? Well, our fiat monetary system is lousy money. It's government money, and it's designed to fail. If you own it, you are guaranteed to lose. But if you use the free market alternative, gold is superior to any substitute that the government concocts, with a printing press. So you could do that. You could use gold, and you'll have a much better experience using gold as a medium of exchange, and then also as a store of value, than you will using the dollars. And so you can set up your account. I have a lot more functionality coming, but I've got it ready to go. So at least people can get started, buy some gold and silver, have it in a vault, and it'll be ready to be able to be used in transactions.
Yeah, we agree on so many things. It's so funny, but I just would say there's two things I don't agree on. One, the Blue Jays are better than the Dodgers. You think the other way around?
No, I didn't say. I said the Blue Jays are playing really well. I mean, we got the pitching on the Dodgers, but yeah. I don't know. I mean, you guys have been playing some defense.
We can hit. And then the other thing I would say is that Bitcoin in the crypto financial system is the answer to the broken fiat system that you outline as well, right? You outline the exact same thing, but you want to take us to the old financial system of gold. We want to take us to the frontier, which is crypto and Bitcoin. That's where our roads cross and we differ, but that's okay.
Yeah,
that's okay.
The financial system is broken. You're right. But jumping from the frying pan into the fire is not the solution. Bitcoin is just a private version of fiat. It's not the solution that you're looking for. It is or was a get rich quick scheme for a lot of people. I think now it's a get broke slow scheme, although you might go broke quickly if the bottom drops out of this thing, because it's looking very, very toppy. So, maybe if the government comes up and Trump says, all right, we're going to buy it. We're going to sell our gold and we're going to buy Bitcoin. I don't know. Maybe you could get a rally. That would be a great selling opportunity. That's the whole idea. But I don't know that he's going to be able to do that. But that would be a massive mistake for the U.S. government to allow foreign central banks to get all of our gold, and we get stuck with nothing but worthless strings of numbers that nobody wants.
All right, LG, let's wrap up.
That's great, Peter. Well, thank you for the perspective, man. I love the passion. I love the intensity. That's
trying to save you guys. Trying to save you from yourselves. It's like you've got everything right, except you've just got the wrong.
That's what I think about you. That's exactly what I think about you.
But remember,
you too.
I had all this stuff first, right? I was thinking all this stuff before you guys were born.
Says every boomer on the planet, eh?
That's not fair. Yeah, that's.
But you know what? Everybody thinks they're smarter than their parents and their grandparents. This is not new, right? This is not new. People want to rebel. So okay, you're rebelling against gold with Bitcoin. Who knows what your kids and grandkids are going to say? But you'll be able to, say the same thing as me. Look, let me tell you, son, I remember, I don't know if you've heard about this thing called Bitcoin, but way back in the day, I had a lot of money in Bitcoin. I really thought it was going to, change the world. And I should have listened to Peter Schiff. He was older than me and he was wiser and more experienced. And I should have listened to him. But, I was too stubborn. I lost all my money. That's why I'm broke.
Peter, at the rate kids are going, young people are going these days, they'll be like, you should sold it into XRP. That's what they're going to tell us. Yeah.
They definitely won't
All
want
right,
a
Peter.
pet rock, that's for sure.
Yeah. Peter, thank you so much for having you on the show. Kyle, thanks for joining an epic episode. And we'll.
Are you guys going to this conference in Dubai?
Oh, he wants
We
to
are
go,
not. We are not.
All right.
You are?
I think so.
You're going to go to a Bitcoin conference. What do you do?
Well, that's
there?
so I can
You
have
just,
a
like, go-
debate with CZ.
Ah, okay. Oh, right. I
Oh,
saw
that's
that.
right. Is
That's
that
gonna be
happening?
sweet.
Is that Rumble happening?
They're trying to make it happen. So, you know,
Nice.
Right
he's
on.
ready to go.
We'll check that out.
Taylor's
Sure,
going to be there, though. I'm wondering if when he
cover
finds
that.
out I'm going, he's probably going to have to come up with an excuse not to show up.
He's going to come up he's going to come out mid-match, dropping from the ceiling. Like
Peter
the
Schiff,
Undertaker or
Michael
something.
Saylor boxing match. How sick would that be?
On the White House lawn, man. That's where I want to see it. At the UFC battle. That'll be the opening match. All right, Peter, thank you so much, man. I'm sure we'll see you again. Kyle, thanks for coming.
If y'all are making swaps or trades right now, highly recommend you check out Milk Road Swap. This is a DEX that we built in partnership with Cow Protocol. Why did we build it? Not to make money, just honestly so we could have a place to do our swaps for the lowest fees that we could find. This is the fees on Ethereum, Arbitrum, and Base are only 0.15% fees. This is a huge difference from other centralized exchanges that charge 0.5% or even up to 1.2% fees on their swaps. Also, you can swap on Solana, all at swap.milkroad.com. Check it out today. You won't be upset. And you can join me in my favorite place to make swaps on chain. Want insights on what's moving crypto markets and how we're trading each event? Subscribe to our channel and join the Milk Road Daily and Pro newsletters and start investing like the top 1%. This show is for educational purposes only. Nothing we say is financial advice. Investing is risky. Never invest more than you can afford to lose.